So today's the big day. NICEIC Assessment Day comes around once a year and it seems to fly by. And it's a funny old thing really, the NICEIC assessment, because it always goes absolutely fine, but I always freak out in the weeks before. And I don't know, it just stresses me out. I think it's just having someone kind of scrutinise you and go through everything with a fine-tooth comb is a little bit intimidating. But it's usually a great day. I usually learn something from it, and usually it comes out absolutely fine. So I thought I'd just talk you through it today, really, how I prepare. Because there is quite a lot of preparation work that you need to do to get ready for your assessment if you want it to all go smoothly. So I'm just going to talk you through how I prepare, what I do, and maybe it'll be of benefit to you. If you enjoyed this video, hit a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, because we post videos here every week all about electrical work, the life of an electrician, and other fascinating and intriguing subjects. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I'm here at home and I've got everything all laid out in front of me, ready for my NICEIC inspector. And actually he's a guy that I know very well now, because he's been visiting me for, I would say, about 10 years. And he visited my dad before me when I was apprentice for my dad. So he knows us, and it makes it easier because he already knows that I've got a very high standard of work, so that helps. And he's a nice guy, and he usually informs me about things that are coming up in the industry, news, etc. And we have a good conversation about how things are going in the industry, so it's always good fun. So I've got my laptop here. That's because I've got all my list of work on the laptop, and included on the laptop I've got most of the documentation that he needs to see. So if I get this up for you, I'll just read you the list. If you go onto the NICEIC website, you can see there's a section there, how do I prepare for an assessment? So I'll leave a link in the description for this. But the first point it says is office premises. Usually the area engineer will need to see your office, whether this is in your home or a separate business address. So I do have a separate business address, but it's just an address. My main office work happens at home, so he's happy to visit me here at home, so that's fine. Office procedures and paperwork is the next one. It says, ensure all the relevant policies, procedures and insurances are documented and readily available to show the area engineer. So what that means is I've got to show him my public liability insurance certificate. So I've got a digital copy of that ready to show him. I need to show him my health and safety policy. That's important. So again, I've got a health and safety policy that's up to date, because it should be reviewed every 12 months. And I'll put a link in the description where you can find one of these. It's an easy template that you can just download online. HSE provide it, and you can just fill out your company's details on there and you're good to go. So it doesn't take long to prepare that if you've not got one already, which you should have. What else does he need to see? Publications. So I've got some printed publications here. So I've got my on-site guide. I've got my, I don't know how he'll feel about this, my NAPIT Code Breakers book, but I do refer to this quite a lot, so I'm going to show him that. BS 7671, 18th edition wiring regulations, and I've also got my Code of Practice for Electric Vehicle Charging Equipment Installation 3rd edition. Last time he was here, which is just over a year ago, he did pick me up on the fact that I only had the 2nd edition and it hadn't been updated to the 18th edition, BS 7671 2018. So I did get a newer version of that. And then on my computer, I have some other publications which I don't refer to very often, but they're there if I need them. So I've got 5 steps to risk assessment, because you've got to be able to show that you know how to do risk assessment method statements, etc. I've got approved document P, so that's just a free download that you can get, which is basically the building regulations part P. Best practice guide to safe isolation, which is from the Electrical Safety First. I've got that on there. Again, it's a free download. I'll put links in the description to all of these. Code of practice for in-service inspection of electrical and testing of electrical equipment. So it's basically if you do a bit of pat testing, you need to have a copy of that somewhere, which I do. So I've got a digital copy of that. I've got my health and safety policy, memorandum of guidance on the electricity at work regulations 1989, HSR 25, second edition. Again, I've got a PDF copy of that. It's a free download. You can get it online. I'll put a link in the description. Then I've got my public liability insurance certificate. I've got my accuracy of test results check sheet. So I'll show you this. Basically on here, every month I do some self-checks on my multifunction tester, which is down there. So basically just to check that it's still working as it should. So I've got a little cal card, which I'll show you here. This is the cal card, and it's got various resistances. The red ones are for your insulation resistance test, and the blue ones are for your continuity testing, and the black is common because it's basically for zeroing out your leads. That just stays in my tester box, and I'll put a link in the description where you can get one of these. Basically then I use this to do my monthly checks to essentially check that it's reading correctly and there's nothing funny going on with the tester. I also have a earth loop impedance test that I do at a socket in the office so that I can check that the live testing part of the tester is working okay. So that's it basically for accuracy or checks, and he just wants to see that to make sure you've got a procedure in place to make sure that your test equipment is accurate. One more thing I forgot to mention, and that is regarding documentation. He picked me up on one document that I didn't have, which is now required by NIC, which wasn't last year. And that is, of course, the GS38 document. And that's a free download from HSE. I'll put a link in the description below. But just good for you to know that he does require for you to have a GS38 document somewhere, in digital format or whatever. So that's kind of it for documentation. The other thing that he does want to see usually is a company headed paper. So I've just done a test quote so that he can see my company headed paper with all the company details, etc. I've got a printed copy of the public liability insurance certificate just in case he wants to see that. And then I've got my test equipment down here. So I've got two multifunction testers. I've got a Fluke, and then as a backup, I've got my QTech KT63, which is pretty rubbish and I never really use it. I've got my proving unit and my QTech KT1780 approved voltage tester. And I've got my lockout kit, so I can show him all of those. And he usually likes to record the serial numbers and stuff. So he'll go through like all the office assessment part basically to check that all your paperwork's up to date, that your procedures are up to date. Another thing, record of complaints. You have to show that you've got a record of complaints. So I've just got a little PDF document which is called Record of Complaints, and it's just got my company name at the top and then complaint number, details of the complaints. I've never had any complaints, so it's empty, but you've just got to show that you've got a procedure, a complaints procedure in place to be able to deal with complaints if you do get any. Then what he wants to do is see a list of work that I've done for the past year, and he'll go through at random, pick some of the jobs, have a look at the certification for them. So I don't have like a spreadsheet with a list of job by job. What I do is just I log into my NICEIC online portal where I've got all my certificates, and I just show him that. And what he likes to do as well, he just talks through a few of the jobs, and then he likes to check some of them to make sure that I have been submitting building regulations notifications for those jobs. So he'll pick a few jobs at random that were, like, say, a new circuit was added or consumer unit change or something like that, which should have been notified to the building regs. And what he will do is say, okay, can you show me the building regulation certificate for this job, please? And I'll find it for him. So that's another little thing that he likes to do. And then he'll say, okay, can we go to some of these jobs and have a look? Now, in real life, getting a number of customers ready to receive you is not always easy, especially in a domestic environment. So what I tend to do is go through all my jobs for the year and pick a load, email the customers out in advance and say, can you do me a favour? In fact, I'll read you the email that I've sent them. Just, so you know kind of the sort of thing that you could say to your customers to explain the situation. So what I've said is this: dear so-and-so, I hope you're well. I'm wondering if you could do me a favour. On Monday the 6th of January, I have my annual NICEIC inspection, which is a requirement in order for me to maintain my approved contractor status. They would like me to show them a few of the jobs I've done over the past year, and I was wondering if I could take the engineer to look at the work I did at your house. The visit wouldn't take long, say half an hour max. It would be in the afternoon, approximately 2 to 3 p.m. Do you think this would be possible? It would be a big help if you can. Kind regards, Jordan Farley, Artisan Electrics. So I sent that out to all the customers who I thought might be okay with it. And then I got quite a few replies. So I've secured 4 different jobs that I can take him on today. 3 of them are domestic, 1's commercial. Fortunately, the commercial one is a bakery and it's closed for the day. So they've said that they can just leave it open for me and I can let myself in, which is nice. So he will then look through those jobs that are available to visit and he'll choose probably 2. Usually he likes to have a varied range of jobs to look at. So if I have to guess now, I would say he'll probably pick the bakery because it's a commercial job. And then I've got an EV charging job that I can take him on as well. He'll probably pick that one. The other 2 are basically consumer unit replacements. So he might pick one of those. They're both fairly close and the EV charging job's a little bit far, so he might prefer to just stay in Cambridge and visit the 2 or one of the 2 consumer unit changes. We'll see. I'll let you know later which jobs he picked. But that's kind of it really. You need to just get ready for the visit. It sounds stupid, but actually, when I talk to these NICEIC guys, they often say that many people, they turn up and they're completely disorganised and they don't know where all the paperwork is and stuff. Another thing that I always do, just to make a good impression, and to be fair, I always try to keep my van clean anyway, but I always do an extra special clean before the NICEIC assessment. So I got it washed on the weekend, so it's all nice and sparkly on the outside, and I just make sure the cabin is nice and clean as well, and there's not loads of junk floating around. Although to be fair, I always keep my cab nice and clean because it does my head in if there's stuff lying around. But I know that a lot of electricians have really messy, dirty vans, and just doesn't give a good impression about your business. If your van's messy and chaotic, they might wonder, well, what's your work like, So I just like to leave a good impression from start to finish, and that includes having a nice, clean and tidy van. So he's just about to arrive in 15 minutes, so I'm just going to do a last little run through, double check that I've got everything right, and get the kettle on, because you've always got to give them a cup of coffee. In fact, he's just pulled up outside the front there. He's always early, very punctual chap. So it is done and dusted, and I got through it absolutely fine, as I do every year. There was no need to stress, but I'm glad it's over. And it was an interesting visit, so I want to share with you now a few pointers that I've picked up from the visit. I'll just run you through what happened and some of the things that came up. Maybe it can be a benefit to you. So in the first part of the assessment, which is the office-based assessment, he picked up on a couple of things which I had overlooked, which was quite important really. I mean, it didn't ruin the visit or anything, but it's just a bit annoying that I didn't think about it. So one of them was my calibration certificate for my tester. I forgot to look for it and bring it down before the visit, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I know I've got it somewhere around, but I should have kept it to hand and just brought it with me as part of the visit. So because I didn't have a calibration certificate for the tester, he wanted to see more test results in my schedule of testing that I do monthly. He wanted to see RCD testing as part of that, for example, which I didn't have. I don't do RCD testing as part of my monthly checks. So yeah, that's one thing he picked up on, and he just wrote it down on the thing. Not a big deal, it's not going to fail me or anything, but something that I just need to make sure I do is keep my calibration certificate to hand. What else was there in the office-based review? So he went through a few of my certificates, and there weren't really any issues there. One thing he did pick up on, which I haven't thought about, is he said to me, do you have professional indemnity insurance? And I don't think I do, as part of my public liability. And he said you should probably get it, because what if you go and do an EICR, for example, and you basically say that this previous electrician's work who's been in not long ago is not satisfactory, you give it a code 2 or something like that, then that electrician comes forward and says, I'm taking you to court because you are slandering my reputation, then you would need professional indemnity insurance, because that could end up, you know, costing you a fortune in legal fees and stuff like that. So I know that often a lot of insurance packages, public liability insurance packages, do include professional indemnity. They usually ask you when you're getting the quote, do you want to include professional indemnity? And that's something that I picked up on that I need to implement now. So that's pretty much it from the office-based assessment. There was nothing major. He first of all went through with me the visit last time, which I had the report to hand because I keep a digital copy of that. So we went through that together, talked about what we did last time, and then he just checked through everything this time. Then he picked 2 jobs to go and visit out of the 4 that I had available. So he picked the commercial job in the bakery, which I'll put a link up here somewhere so you can see that job, because I've made a video about that job in the past. Basically it was installing a 3-phase distribution board for this bakery for a 3-phase socket outlet that was going in for an oven. So he wanted to go and see that job. And the other one was a domestic job where I did a consumer unit replacement and I relocated it to sort of a more accessible position. So first of all we went to the consumer unit job, the domestic job, and then after that we went to the commercial job. So at the domestic job, what did he pick up on? A couple of things. Little things. I hadn't labelled the switch fuse that I had installed. Basically the relocation of the consumer unit meant that the meter tails would be more than 3 meters long, so what I had to do was put a switch fuse in and then run from that the tails to the new consumer unit, and I hadn't put a label saying feed to consumer unit or feed to DB1 or whatever. So he just picked me up on that and I just did it there, and then I put labels on it and he was happy with that. We had a bit of a discussion about the length of the conductors for surge protection devices, because he was saying that there's a lot of confusion out there and nobody seems to really be able to answer the question of is it acceptable to have it in a consumer unit that's say 5 meters from the mains incomer, or should it be right next to the meter? Because this rule of 1 meter maximum cable length, in his opinion, it means that it should be 1 meter from the main supply earth, which means it basically has to be in the meter cupboard. So he was saying that he would suggest ideally putting a separate SPD in the meter box, for example, or next to the consumer unit or near the consumer unit if it's very close, but having it further away might reduce the effectiveness of it. What else did he pick up on? We went through the... yeah, that was another thing. I missed out on the test report, the test certificate. Although I put a switch fuse in, which is like a sub-main basically, and it should have been added as like a separate distribution board on the certificate. I didn't do that. I just put the main distribution board on the certificate, and I didn't put the the distribution circuit on there. So he just picked me up on that. Now I knew that I should do that, and I usually do that. I don't know why I just missed it off the certificate this time, but he did pick me up on that. And then what he wanted to do is just check around the house to see if I'd maybe missed anything when I was changing the consumer unit. So he wanted to look at the bathroom. So we had a little look in the bathroom to make sure that there were no glaring dangers that you know, I'd clearly overlooked, but there was nothing. So that was fine. We didn't do any testing on that job because the lady had to go out quite quickly. So it was just basically a visual inspection on that job. But the commercial job, he wanted to run through quite a lot of tests. So when we got to the bakery, the commercial job, we first of all had to gain access to the three-phase socket because there was a massive oven in front of it, of course. So I had to pull the oven out, get access to the three-phase socket. First of all, he wanted to check the main incomer. So we had a look at that. It was a TNS system, so he wanted to check that it really was a TNS system. Looked at the main earthing block. Then he wanted to find the main bonds. So the gas bond was right above the distribution board, so that was easy. We looked at that. He checked it. He gave it a little wiggle to make sure it's tight. Then the water bond, which we found as well, although it was a plastic incomer, but I'd still recorded it on the certificate because it was bonded. Then he wanted to do a series of tests, but first safe isolation procedure. So he asked me to take the cover off the distribution board and carry out safe isolation to make sure that it was dead, so that we could then perform some dead tests on the circuit. So I used my proving unit, I used my GS38 test voltage indicator, and just showed him that I knew how to do safe isolation. And then once I'd done that, he asked me to do an R1 and R2 test at the socket outlet. So I linked out the live and earth, the phase, or line and earth, technically it's supposed to call it, L1 and earth, CPC, at the consumer unit, linked those out, did a test at the other end of R1 and R2, and he just checked that the reading matched with the certificate. Then he asked me to do insulation tests. So I did a 500 volt insulation test between all the various combinations of wires. Then he asked me to liven it up and do a Z. So first of all do ZE and PFC at the board. So I did that. And then he asked me to do a ZS and RCD test at the socket outlet, and also a phase rotation test. So I used my GS38 test lead to do the phase rotation test because that's got a rotation feature on it, and then I used my fluke to do the ZS earth loop impedance and the RCD tests. And one thing he picked me up on was that I hadn't put an RCD test label next to the socket outlet, which was a three-phase socket outlet with a built-in RCD. And of course with the 18th edition, which I'd kind of forgotten about, you're supposed to put an RCD test label next. Sorry guys, somehow the camera cut out there, so I'm just slipping this bit in. So yeah, you're supposed to put an RCD test label next to each RCD in the installation, which means, for example, if you install a socket outlet that's got a built-in RCD protection, you should actually put a RCD label next to it, test label. So I should have known that, but I just forgot or whatever, and I didn't put a label next to the socket. So that was one thing that he picked up on my installation in the bakery. But apart from that, everything was all good. So I hope this video has been of benefit to you. And if it has, hit a thumbs up and share the video out to someone else who could benefit from it. Also, I've just hit 2,000 followers on Instagram. If you don't follow me already on Instagram, head over to the link in the description. You can follow me on Instagram. I post there pretty much daily, so you can get daily updates from me on what's going on in my life and work. And also head over to Twitter as well, because there's an amazing community of electricians over on Twitter. Follow me on there, you'll see the conversations that are going on. We learn a lot from each other on Twitter, so it's really beneficial. By the way, I just wanted to say a massive thanks to everyone who has headed over to my Tools for Sparks channel and subscribed to that. We've just hit 1,000 subscribers on Tools for Sparks. If you haven't seen it already, head over. There's a link in the description below, or at the end of this video there'll be a little button that you can click on to subscribe to my Tools for Sparks channel. I post there videos of amazing tools that all electricians will love, so you're going to enjoy those videos too if you're in the electrical industry or if you just love tools. Also, check out my Patreon page if you haven't done so already, and links in the description for all the documents that I've mentioned here. A lot of them I'll provide free links for you to download, like my spreadsheets and things like that. And there's also links for where you can purchase the various books that you need, like the BS 7671, on-site guide, electric vehicle charging thing, etc. And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so that you don't miss out, because I post videos here every week. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.